It's just stuff. God, you're being so dramatic. It's just a room, my mother snapped. I blocked her number for good. On Thanksgiving, she tried to get me home. I spent 4 years busting my ass at college, working 2 jobs while maintaining a 3.8 GPA, all so I could make my family proud. I was the first one to get a degree. I thought coming home would feel like, well, coming home. Instead, I walked into a house where I no longer existed. The drive back had been filled with a weird mix of excitement and anxiety. 4 years of instant ramen, sleepless nights, and endless term papers had finally paid off. I had my psychology degree in one hand and a mountain of student debt in the other, but damn it, I'd done it. 22 years old, first in my family to graduate and ready to start the next chapter. The plan was simple: move back home temporarily, land a job in my field, save up for a few months, then get my own place. Mom knew I was coming. We'd talked about it for weeks. She'd even sent a half-hearted congrats text when I sent her pictures from graduation. No flowers, no card, no showing up to the ceremony despite my offering to help with gas money. But whatever, I'd stopped expecting grand gestures years ago. Looking back, the signs were all there, like neon warning lights I'd deliberately ignored. When I was 16, Mom took the $300 I'd saved from my summer job to buy my cousin Dylan a PlayStation because he was going through a rough time after his mom started dadding again. My college application fees, I worked extra shifts at Dairy Queen to cover those myself. When I got accepted to state with a partial scholarship, Mom barely looked up from her phone. But when Dylan got his GED after dropping out 3 years prior, she threw him a party and invited the whole family. I pulled into our cracked driveway that Thursday afternoon in May. Something felt off. The house looked the same: faded blue paint, crooked mailbox, my sister Lee's bike tossed on the front lawn, but something in my gut tightened. I grabbed my suitcase and the small box of graduation gifts from friends, feeling the humid air press against my skin. The door was unlocked. I stepped inside and called out, "Hello, I'm home." Lee appeared from the kitchen, now 16 and taller than when I'd last seen her at Christmas the year before. Her expression was strange, a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Hey," she said, giving me an awkward half-hug. "You're back?" "Yep, finally done with exams forever. Where's Mom?" "At work, she'll be home around 6. Lee shifted her weight from one foot to the other. "So, how was the drive?" Something in her voice made my stomach drop, but I brushed it off. "Fine, just ready to crash in my own bed for once. Those dorm mattresses were killing my back." Her eyes darted away. Amber." But I was already heading down the hallway to my bedroom, dragging my suitcase behind me. The door that used to have my handmade Amber's Room sign now had a Batman poster taped to it. My hand froze on the doorknob. "What the hell?" I murmured, pushing the door open. The room that had once been mine, pale yellow walls covered with my honor roll certificates and favorite band posters, the twin bed with the purple comforter I'd saved up for, the desk where I'd studied for the SATs, was gone. Completely gone. The walls were now gray. A queen bed with rumpled dark sheets took up most of the space. Gaming equipment covered the desk. Clothes were strewn across the floor. And there, lounging on what should have been my bed, was my cousin Dylan, headset on, controller in hand, completely absorbed in his game. He glanced up briefly. "Oh, you're back." The blood rushed to my face. "What are you doing in my room?" He barely looked away from his screen. "It's not your room anymore, hasn't been for a while." My hands went numb, my ears started ringing. I backed out and stumbled down the hallway to the living room where Lee stood with her arms crossed over her chest, eyes on the floor. "Where's my stuff?" My voice sounded strange, distant. "What happened to my things?" The front door opened and there was Mom, looking exactly the same: bottle blonde hair, too much eyeliner, cigarette between her fingers. She started when she saw me, like she'd forgotten I was coming home today. "Oh, you're here," she said, dropping her purse on the coffee table. "I thought you weren't coming until tomorrow." "I told you I'd be here today," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Where's my room? Why is Dylan in there?" Mom waved her hand dismissively. "He needed a place to stay after Lisa moved in with that new boyfriend of hers. You don't live here anymore anyway." "But all my stuff." "We put some boxes in the basement, but most of it was just taking up space. I donated what you wouldn't need." She said it so casually, like she was telling me she'd picked up milk at the store. My chest felt like it was caving in. "My yearbooks, my awards, my clothes." "Oh, don't be dramatic, Amber, it's just stuff. You can get new things now that you're a college graduate. Anyway, you can sleep on the couch until you find your own place, it pulls out. At that moment, something inside me just broke. 22 years of trying to earn her love, and it took less than 5 minutes to realize I never had it and never would. I looked at my mother's face, no guilt, no shame, not even recognition that she'd done anything wrong, and I knew I couldn't stay. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just grabbed my car keys from where I'd set them on the side table. Amber, where are you going? Lee's voice was small, worried. I couldn't answer. If I opened my mouth, I'd either scream or sob, and I wasn't going to give my mother the satisfaction of either. I walked out the door, got in my car, and drove away. I drove aimlessly for almost an hour, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My entire existence erased, like I'd never lived there at all, like I didn't matter. Reality set in quickly. I had maybe $800 in my bank account, not enough for a security deposit, let alone rent, not in this economy. I couldn't afford a hotel for more than a few nights, and I had exactly zero furniture to my name. I pulled into a Walmart parking lot and stared at my phone, then I thought of Nate. Nate and I had been neighbors growing up, inseparable until his family moved to the nicer part of town when we were 15. We'd stayed friends through high school and kept in loose touch during college. He'd been one of the few people to congratulate me when I posted about my graduation on Instagram. He answered on the third ring. Amber, hey, you back in town? Yeah, my voice cracked. I'm sorry to call out of the blue like this, but I'm in a situation and, are you okay? What's wrong? The genuine concern in his voice made my eyes burn with tears. I told him everything. When I finished, there was silence on the other end. Nate, I'm here, Jesus, that's messed up on so many levels. Look, I have a spare room, it's small, but it's yours for as long as you need it, no questions asked. Relief hit me so hard I almost dropped the phone. Are you sure? I don't want to impose. Get your ass over here, Brooks, I'll order pizza. I sat in Nate's driveway for 10 minutes before I could make myself knock on his door. The shame was overwhelming. I'd worked so hard to build something for myself, and here I was, homeless and begging for help barely a week after graduation. Nate opened the door before I could spiral further. He'd grown a beard since I'd last seen him, and he filled the doorframe in a way he hadn't in high school. Without a word, he pulled me into a hug. That was when I finally broke down, all the hurt, all the betrayal, all the years of trying to be good enough. It came pouring out in ugly, heaving sobs against his shoulder. He just held me there on his porch, not saying anything, letting me fall apart. Inside, the spare room was small but clean. A twin bed with fresh sheets, a nightstand with a lamp, a tiny closet. It wasn't much, but it was 1,000 times more consideration than my own mother had shown me. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling of Nate's spare room, my phone lighting up with notifications. 6 missed calls from Mom, a dozen text messages escalating from casual curiosity about where I'd gone to angry demands that I stop being childish and come home. Around midnight, Lee texted, Dylan moved in 8 months ago. Mom told us not to tell you because it would just upset you for no reason. I'm sorry, Amber, I should have warned you. 8 months? While I was working double shifts and pulling all-nighters, they were erasing me from the house, from their lives, and they didn't even have the decency to tell me. I turned off my phone and finally let myself cry until there was nothing left. The next morning, I woke to the sound of someone pounding on the front door. Disoriented, I stumbled into the hallway just as Nate emerged from his room, hair disheveled from sleep. What the hell? He muttered, checking his phone. It's not even 8 a.m. We both froze when we heard the voice from the other side of the door. Amber, I know you're in there. Open this door right now. My mother, my stomach dropped to my feet. Nate looked at me, eyebrows raised in silent question. I shook my head frantically. The pounding continued. Amber Marie Brooks, you stop this nonsense right now and come home. You're embarrassing yourself and this family. Nate's face hardened. He strode to the door and yanked it open, positioning himself in the doorway so Mom couldn't push past him. Mrs. Brooks, he said, his voice flat, it's pretty early. My mother tried to look around him. Where is she? Amber, stop being ridiculous and come home right now. I stepped into view, my whole body trembling but my voice steadier than I expected. I'm not coming home. Mom's eyes narrowed. What do you mean you're not coming home? Don't be stupid. Where else are you going to go? You have no money, no job. And whose fault is that? The words burst out of me, sharp and bitter. I sent you money every month from my campus jobs. I worked 30 hours a week on top of full-time classes to help with bills. What happened to all that money, Mom? Did it go to Dylan's PlayStation Plus subscription, his new phone, the queen-sized bed that replaced mine? Her face flushed. Don't you take that tone with me, young lady. I put a roof over your head for 18 years, and the second I left, you gave my room away and threw out my belongings, things I can never replace. My childhood photos, the medal from the state science fair, the blanket grandma made me before she died. My voice cracked. You threw away my entire life. It's just stuff, she snapped. God, you're being so dramatic. It's just a room, you weren't using it. For the first time facing my mother, I didn't hunch my shoulders or look away. It wasn't just a room, it was the last piece of home I had, and you didn't even have the decency to tell me you were giving it away, after everything I've sacrificed for you. What exactly have you sacrificed, Mom? You didn't come to my graduation, you didn't help with college. You took the money I sent home and spent it on Dylan. You've spent my entire life making me feel like I wasn't good enough, wasn't important enough, wasn't worth the same love and attention you give everyone else. Something shifted in her face, not remorse, but the realization that her usual tactics weren't working. She switched strategies, her expression softening into a practiced look of concern. Honey, I know you're upset, but this isn't the solution. Come home, we'll figure something out. Maybe Dylan can sleep on the couch for a few days while you look for a place. No, the word was small but absolute. I'm not coming back. I'll arrange to pick up whatever's left of my things. After that, we're done. Her face hardened again. Fine, if that's how you want to be, you're just like your father, selfish, ungrateful, running away when things get tough. Goodbye, Mom. I stepped back as Nate began to close the door. This isn't over, she shouted as the door shut in her face. You'll come crawling back, you always do. But I wouldn't. Something in me had broken yesterday, but today I realized it was the chains I'd put on myself. The desperate need for her approval, the belief that if I just tried harder, achieved more, she'd finally love me the way I deserved to be loved. The aftermath was predictably ugly. Mom launched a full campaign to paint me as the villain of our family drama. She posted vague, passive-aggressive prayers for my troubled daughter on Facebook. She called every relative who would listen, spinning a story about how I'd had some kind of mental breakdown after graduation and was lashing out at her for no reason. Flying monkeys descended. Aunts and uncles I barely talked to suddenly had very strong opinions about how I should be more understanding of my poor, hardworking mother, how family was everything, how I was being ungrateful. I blocked her number after the 15th guilt trip text. I unfriended the relatives who kept tagging me in their family is forever memes. I changed my privacy settings so Mom and her enablers couldn't see my posts. Only Lee maintained contact, though she had to do it secretly. At 16, she was stuck in that house for at least 2 more years. Our conversations were strained at first. She felt guilty for not warning me, and I was still raw from the betrayal, but we slowly rebuilt our relationship on new terms. Dylan lost his job, she texted me one night 3 weeks after the incident. Mom keeps saying you'll be back once you get over yourself. But you're not coming back, are you? No, I replied, I'm not. Meanwhile, I threw myself into job hunting with desperate intensity. I applied to everything remotely related to my degree. I took personality tests, wrote cover letters, sat through awkward Zoom interviews with my one good blouse carefully positioned in frame. Nate was a godsend through all of it. He never made me feel like a burden, never rushed me to figure things out. He'd come home from his IT job with takeout and we'd eat on his couch, watching stupid movies and talking about everything except the gaping wound that was my family situation. The universe threw me a rare bone when a local mental health clinic called about my application. The pay wasn't great, barely above minimum wage, but it was in my field, had benefits, and offered tuition assistance for graduate studies. I accepted on the spot. 2 months after the incident, I signed a lease with a woman from work who needed a roommate after her last one moved out unexpectedly. The apartment was small, the neighborhood was okay but not great, and the commute was longer than ideal. But it was mine, a place where no one could erase me. Moving day was bittersweet. Nate helped me carry my pathetic collection of belongings, the suitcase I'd arrived with, plus a few boxes of essentials I'd purchased over the summer, into my new room. "You know you could have stayed longer," he said as we unloaded the last box. "I wasn't in any rush to kick you out. I know, but I needed to do this." I looked around the bare room, no decorations, just a mattress on the floor and a cheap dresser from Goodwill. I need to build something that's actually mine, something no one can take away. That night, alone in my new place, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "I've left the porch light on. The door is unlocked when you're ready to stop this foolishness and come home." I didn't respond. Instead, I took a photo of my new key in the lock of my apartment door and posted it on Instagram with the caption, "Home is what you build, not what you're given." Then I blocked her number for good. 6 months after the incident, Thanksgiving approached, bringing a fresh wave of anxiety. It would be the first major holiday since the incident. Mom had begun a new campaign to get me home, alternating between bribery, "I'm making your favorite sweet potato casserole," and guilt, "Lee misses you. How can you abandon your sister on Thanksgiving?" I was unmoved. Instead, I accepted an invitation to Friendsgiving at Nate's place. 2 days before Thanksgiving, there was a knock at my apartment door. I opened it to find Lee standing there, backpack over her shoulder, eyes red from crying. "Can I stay with you?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Just for a few days." I pulled her inside immediately. "What happened?" The story spilled out between sobs. Mom had been on a rampage about Thanksgiving, insisting it had to be perfect. She'd been drinking more than usual, taking her stress out on Lee. The final straw came when Lee mentioned she'd been texting me. "She went ballistic," Lee said, wiping her eyes, screaming about how I was betraying her, how I was choosing you over family. "She took my phone and read all our conversations, then she slapped me." Fury washed over me, hot, blinding, all-consuming. Mom had never hit us before. That was a line she hadn't crossed until now. "You're staying here," I said firmly. "We'll figure it out." The next day, Thanksgiving Eve, Mom showed up at my workplace. I was in the break room when the receptionist called, voice tight with discomfort. "There's a woman here insisting on seeing you, says she's your mother and it's an emergency." Ice filled my veins. "Tell her I'm with a client and can't be disturbed." But Mom wasn't taking no for an answer. By the time I gathered my things to leave through the back door, she had pushed her way into the reception area and was making a scene. "Where is she? Amber, I know you're here. Your sister is missing and it's your fault." I froze, then turned around and walked deliberately to the reception area. Several coworkers were staring as Mom continued her tirade. "Mom," I said, my voice low and controlled, "this is my workplace. You need to leave." She whirled on me, mascara streaked down her face from crocodile tears. "How dare you? Lee is gone and you have the nerve to." "Lee is safe," I interrupted. "She's staying with me." Mom's face contorted with rage. "You took her. You had no right. She's a minor. I'll call the police. I'll have you arrested for kidnapping." "She came to me after you hit her," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The reception area went deadly silent. "If anyone's calling the police, it should be her for child abuse." Mom blanched. "I never. She's lying." "Save it. We both know the truth. Now get out before I call security to escort you out." Mom looked wildly between us, realizing she'd lost her audience. Without another word, she stormed out, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled in its frame. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel every eye on me, could sense the questions forming on their lips. My supervisor touched my arm gently. "Take the rest of the day, Amber, and tomorrow too, if you need it." That night, Lee and I talked for hours, really talked for the first time in years, about Mom, about our childhood, about the ways we'd both been shaped by her toxic love. "I always thought you were the lucky one," Lee confessed. "You got out, you went to college, you built a life without her." "And I always thought you were the lucky one," I replied. "You never had to fight for her attention the way I did." We laughed, a sad, knowing sound, two sides of the same damaged coin. On Thanksgiving Day, we went to Nate's parents' house. They welcomed Lee with the same warmth they'd always shown me. We ate too much, played board games, watched holiday movies. Not once did anyone pressure us to talk about Mom or what had happened. It was just normal, peaceful. A year after the incident, I barely recognized my own life. After careful documentation and consultation with a pro bono lawyer Nate's dad knew, Lee had successfully petitioned for emancipation from Mom. At 17, she was technically on her own, but in practice, she lived with me in our now shared apartment. I'd been promoted at work, moving from administrative support to a peer counselor position with a modest but meaningful raise. I'd started night classes toward a master's degree in clinical psychology, taking advantage of the clinic's tuition assistance program. Mom's attempts to contact us had gradually tapered off. The last we'd heard, Dylan had moved out after finding a job in another state, and Mom was dating some guy she'd met at a bar. She still posted occasional martyred comments on social media, but we'd both blocked her long ago. Lee was the one who suggested we do something to mark the anniversary, not to celebrate it, she clarified, but to acknowledge how far we've come to reclaim the day. So, on the exact date of the incident, we drove to the beach, a 2-hour trip that felt worth every minute when we saw the vastness of the ocean stretching before us. We sat on the sand as the sun began to set, the May air warm against our skin. "Do you ever miss her?" Lee asked quietly. I considered the question carefully. I miss the mother I should have had, the one who would have been proud of me at graduation, who would have helped me move into my dorm and cried when she said goodbye, who would have kept my room as a place I could always come back to. I dug my toes into the cooling sand. But the mother we actually had, no, I don't miss her at all. Lee nodded, understanding. I used to think there was something wrong with me for not feeling sad about cutting her off, like I was supposed to be more broken up about it. That's what they want you to think, that family is everything, no matter how toxic, that you're obligated to keep taking the poison just because you share blood. I watched a seagull dive into the waves. But we get to decide what family means to us, we get to build something better. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The room she'd erased wasn't my home anyway. I'd built something better, a life that was truly mine. One where I was valued, respected, and loved. Not because I'd earned it through achievement or obedience, but simply because I deserved it. Lee leaned against my shoulder, her weight solid and real. "Thanks for not leaving me behind." I wrapped an arm around her. "Never," I promised. "We're family, the real kind." She thought erasing my room would erase me. Instead, it freed me to become someone stronger than she ever allowed me to be.